All right. Welcome to 631 Oak Street. Today, the Historic MixUP team and I will be walking you through our renovation plans for the Nelson Schroeder building. Our plan is to balance historic restoration with modern functionality. If you look on the screen, on the left is the current state of the building, and on the right is a generated image of our renovation plans. My name is Hayden Baker, and I'm the project manager.
I'm Nathan Heberbrand, the PMBOK expert. John Cook, the project scribe.
I'm Nathan Sema, the team liaison and final document editor.
I'm Sean Dewey, the meeting coordinator.
My name is Dalen Adler. I'm the document manager. So our team started this project back in January and it's broken off into 4 gates. Each gate consists of 10 to 15 various deliverables and tasks that were delegated to us by a project manager. Our team chose deliverables and tasks that we think are critical to explaining our project process and project value.
So as Michigan Tech students and by proxy honorary UPers, we decided to focus our initial search for a building right here in the Keweenaw Peninsula. And we eventually, as Hayden said, we eventually found a building that fit our needs in the form of the historic Nelson Schroeder building at 631 Oak Street in Calumet. We chose Calumet for numerous reasons, including various business funding opportunities such as the Bring Back Calumet project and state government investments into the local community. But what was more important to us when selecting a building was the fact that we feel a deep connection to the community of Calumet. All of us have lived here for the vast majority of our adult lives, so we really understand the area and we really understand what it needs. And we understand the type of impact that affordable housing and better opportunities for small businesses can have on Calumet's declining population as well as their high poverty rate. So ultimately, we felt that putting our project in an area that we understand and we've come to know and love gave us the best opportunity to make the most impact possible.
So a lot of businesses and independent people are going to be affected by this project. Some of them have more power and influence than others, and the team recognized them as our key project stakeholders. We need to stay on the same page with them throughout the entire duration of the project. So in order to do that, my team is going to implement our communication plan as well as our stakeholder satisfaction model. And also the team recognizes that not all the stakeholders will agree on acceptance criteria and just basic expectations of the building. If that's the case, then common ground meetings will be held to find mutually beneficial solutions for the team and also the stakeholders.
As previously stated, it is our ultimate goal to redevelop the Nelson Schroeder building in downtown Calumet, restore it to its former glory as it once stood 120 years ago. In order to effectively do that, our team has created a comprehensive project plan and to ensure that all stakeholders are satisfied with the end results. The beginning of this phase was to identify the project scope. Within that, we want to really work to redevelop the building and historically preserve it so that we can have an effective strategy for that going into that. Next up, ADA compliance is of the utmost importance to us, ensuring that the building is accessible to anyone who may come into contact with it. With that, we aim to sustainably redevelop the building and leverage local strategic sourcing as well as structure integrity things with the LEED standards. Ultimately, our goal is to give back to the community of Calumet by offering affordable housing as well as addressing the business gaps in the downtown area and the small business opportunities that are available. In order to effectively fund our project, we are fortunate enough to have a project sponsor that is willing to cover a majority of the costs. But outside of that, we're going to be looking for local, state, and federal grants to help alleviate some of the financial process. And our project is going to run from January of 2025 through April of 2028.
So our project has been broken down into 4 key life cycle phases, each of which is designed to help our team tailor our project as well as manage our project delivery. Our first phase is the initial planning phase of the project and essentially encompasses everything that we've done within the scope of this class so far. And this includes things like team formulation, defining our roles and responsibilities, defining our scope, creating our project charter, and identifying resources that are going to be needed for us to be able to complete this project. Phases 2 and 3 are the execution and monitoring and control phases, and those 2 phases will run simultaneously. As you can probably imagine, the execution phase will feature the physical reconstruction of the building, and then as we move forward, we will also be running a monitoring control phase alongside that, where we will be conducting regular performance reviews, KPI monitoring, and ultimately implementing corrective action plans that should allow us to ensure that project success criteria is being met throughout the entire process. And then we will be wrapping it up with our closure phase, which will feature our final building inspection, We'll be seeking our final stakeholder approval and ultimately working our way through our lessons learned. In terms of project tailoring, our team will be focusing on PMBOK principles and performance domains. Things like regular reviews, stakeholder collaboration, and adaptive planning will help us ensure project success and ultimately tangible benefit for the village of Calumet. In terms of our work delivery, we will be using a method that is heavily influenced by the traditional waterfall model. This is ultimately a construction project, so we felt that a more linear and iterative approach was required. We're going to try to allow each phase to be completed chronologically and build on each other as the project progresses. And this should put us in a good position to ultimately ensure that the project success criteria are met and hopefully eliminate any inconsistencies within the construction process.
All right. So getting into the financial portion of our project, our budget is constructed into a 4-phase model. As Nate mentioned in earlier slides with our project lifecycle, it starts off with our initiation and project planning phase, our execution into our monitoring and control, and then finally our closure. So far, we have estimated that our budget is going to be roughly around $7.3 million. And let's get into those numbers real quickly. So starting off with our initiation and project planning, our chunk of our cost is going to go towards our mobilization resource setup, as well as our overall project plan. This is going to be our direct costs, our indirect costs, which our direct costs cover our forecasting for our labor, materials, and equipment. Our indirect cost is going to be more of our administration costs, as well as our stakeholder engagement expenses. Moving on to our oops. Sorry. Back one. Okay. Graph isn't showing us. Okay. All right. So, all right. Moving on to our execution. This is going to be more of the physical changes of the property. So far, we have estimated up to $4.6 million, and roughly we are going to be dealing with expenses that are kind of harder to measure and harder to estimate. To mitigate inaccuracy and increase maximum estimates, we are going to be measuring this based on a cost per square foot and cost per cubic yard. This is going to ensure that every metric is measurable within the cost per unit. So this is going to be covering our materials required, the labor, the equipment, as well as some contingency, and overall going to be giving us a better perspective. Some additional physical transformations to this building is going to include reinforcing the foundation because it is 100 years old, reinforcing the interior and exterior by installing new bricks, lumber, steel, as well as installing concrete where it is needed. Some interior work because we are building a residential and business complex. We're going to be installing 750 square foot apartments. We're going to be doing 10 of them, which is going to take place on the 2nd and 3rd floor, and 2 business units on the 1st floor. So moving on to our monitor control, we have estimated at $1.1 million. This is going to be more of our progress tracking, budget monitoring, as well as our contingency. So far, our contingency is calculated at 8% of our total project cost. So 8% times our 7.3, which is going to be roughly around $930,000. And then finally, our closure. There's the graph. Popped up. Let's get a look at it. So the $218,000 is going to be mainly our stakeholder sign-offs and our final inspections. Our largest number here, or most important one, is going to be our knowledge transfers. So once the construction is done, we're going to have that information archived and that information available to future business owners, future tenants, as well as future building owners. So they understand the remodeling process and everything that was changed about the building. So our work breakdown structure includes all of the project from phase 1 to phase 4, everything that's needed to complete our project objectives and also create our project deliverables. The project or the work breakdown structure is completely tied to the project scope. And this allows for the deliverables to be more manageable for our project team and the stakeholders. Each element of the work breakdown structure was broken down into a work package, and this allowed the team to make estimates of the budget and timeline that are accurate. As far as what's been done so far, gates 1 through 4 in the project planning phase of it. Moving on to the timeline, the project lasts 3 years and 3 months, starting with project planning, which is right now, and then in June of 2025, we'll begin the execution phase and monitoring control, which runs simultaneously, like I said before. This is so that we can ensure that our project is within budget, on schedule, and also meets our quality standards. And then in November of 2027, the closure phase will begin and conclude in just 4.5 months.
Our team is fortunate enough to talk to Jeff Radcliffe, who's the executive director of KEDA, which is a local grant organization here in the Keweenaw. Jeff laid out some of the important steps that our team needs to complete in order to get grant approval. As John mentioned in his previous slides, having a detailed cost breakdown is very important to our project. Conducting a rental rate assessment is also very important to ensure financial feasibility of our project in the area. Given the large scope of our project, our team plans on obtaining initial project funding through our project sponsor, Gabrielle Haskins, as well as other local banks. A positive return on investment is also very important, which is why our team plans on calculating ROI metrics to ensure we are making a profit on this project. Our team plans on taking that data, as well as any other required documentation, and sending it off to grant organizations for grant approval.
In order to address the monitoring and controlling phase of our process, we have identified several quality objectives that we need to maintain throughout this iterative process. The first of which is historic redevelopment. In order to ensure that we have the best building possible that meets the historic standards, we're going to be working with the historic preservationists, as well as looking at historic blueprints, as well as researching part of like the building's history. In order to ensure that we meet those guidelines, we're going to be, as I mentioned previously, trying to acquire that documentation and follow those procedures. It is a fact that 1 in 4 Americans in their life will be unfortunately diagnosed with a disability. And in that case, we aim to ensure that our building is accessible for anyone who may come into contact with it. In order to ensure that this happens, we are going to be working with an ADA compliance officer, as well as meet our goal of 90% for our ADA compliance score. And finally, LEED standards is one of the most important aspects of our project, sustainably redeveloping the building, I should say. And on top of that, we aim to look for materials in the building that may be salvageable and assess the ones that aren't, that contain mold, lead paint, asbestos, anything of that nature. Next, we are going to be sourcing from local businesses. In order to do that, and the reason why we are doing that, is to kind of mitigate some of the supply chain disruptions that might occur in a remote place like Michigan Tech in the Houghton Keweenaw community. And finally, we want to also assess the current systems within the building to ensure that all the water, heat, and electric systems are supportive of the building and not like leaking any excess. In order to ensure we do that, we're going to have regular site inspections, as well as do a procurement log for all of our materials sourced.
We've identified some potential risks throughout our project. As most of you know, whether from your time here at Tech or from living in the local community, we have extremely harsh weather. With this, we expect some delays within our project throughout the execution phase. Additionally, we want to monitor the structural integrity of the building due to the age and the history of flooding within the area. Whether we are accepting the risk or mitigating it, we have set aside a contingency fund of around $900,000, as John has previously mentioned. This project is going to take more than just careful planning, though. It is going to take the help from you, from the local community. For our next step, we need your guys' help to get approval from both the Village of Calumet and the grant administration. We hope that with your continued support, the Nelson Schroeder building will become home to growing local businesses or your son or daughter's first apartment in the beloved Village of Calumet. Thank you all. Please feel free to reach out for any more information.